You know, you can write flawless Python.
Mhm.
You can build predictive models that would honestly make Google engineers take notes.
Right.
You can perfectly balance a corporate ledger or, I don't know, design an architectural blueprint that defies gravity. But if you walk into a boardroom or hop on a remote team call and you just cannot explain your findings without stumbling or rambling or putting your audience to sleep.
Which happens all the time.
It happens all the time. And if you do that, your career is essentially invisible, period. Today, we are fixing that. Welcome to the deep dive.
It's really the great paradox of the modern workplace, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you spend years, maybe decades, and tens of thousands of dollars acquiring highly technical, specialized knowledge.
Oh, absolutely.
But the very moment you try to transfer that knowledge to another human being, you just hit a wall.
A massive wall.
Yeah. So today, we are tearing down that wall. We're going to explore what is really the ultimate professional superpower, which is communication. And we'll look at how to supercharge it using human psychology, behavioral science, and honestly, the absolute cutting edge of artificial intelligence.
Exactly. So if you are listening to this right now, whether you are prepping to ask your boss for a budget increase or trying to navigate a delicate HR conflict, or we've all been here just staring at a blank ChatGPT window wondering why it keeps giving you generic corporate nonsense.
Oh, the corporate speak is the worst.
It's the worst. But this deep dive is your blueprint. We are unpacking a massive stack of insights today. We're pulling from top-tier guides on business communication using AI and some highly specific, really under-the-radar prompting manuals straight from Google.
Yeah, the Google stuff is fascinating.
It really is. So our mission today is to make your communication faster, smarter, and incredibly impactful. But to do that, we actually have to redefine what communication even is.
Right, because most people have a fundamentally flawed definition of it.
They really do.
They think communication is just, the act of speaking or the act of hitting send on an email.
Like checking a box.
Exactly. But it's not. True communication is a two-way process. It is entirely about mutual understanding. Like, if I explain a brilliant marketing strategy to you, but I use so much industry jargon that you just don't understand it, I haven't communicated, I've just made noise.
Right. It's like that old philosophical question, the tree falling in the forest, but applied to the workplace.
Yeah.
If you give a presentation and nobody in the room actually understands the takeaway, did a presentation really happen?
Exactly. I mean, the essence of it is that the other person actually comprehends the message. It doesn't matter what language you use. It doesn't matter, how pretty your slide deck is.
Yeah.
If the listener does not walk away with the exact idea you intended to plant in their head, the whole process failed.
Right.
Communication requires reciprocation.
It's an exchange.
Right. It requires active listening from the audience. And it requires the speaker to constantly calibrate their delivery to ensure that comprehension is happening in real time.
I really love that distinction. You haven't communicated just because the words left your mouth. So what does this mean for our careers? Because we see this hard line drawn constantly between hard skills, right? Your technical ability, your coding, your math, your subject matter expertise. And then on the other side, soft skills.
Yes, and communication is universally placed at the absolute center of those soft skills.
Right.
It sits right alongside things like problem solving, emotional intelligence, and adaptability. But here is the really critical takeaway from the sources today.
Okay.
Effective communication is the actual mechanical key to career growth.
Wow.
Yeah, it is the delivery mechanism for your expertise. Without it, you just cannot unlock professional opportunities, no matter how objectively smart you are.
So think about it like this. I was reading this and thinking hard skills are basically the horsepower of a car engine.
Okay, I like that.
You can have this massive twin-turbo V8 engine under the hood. That is your data science degree, your coding boot camp, your 10 years of logistics experience.
Yeah.
But soft skills, specifically communication, that is the steering wheel.
Oh, that's good.
Right. You can have all the power in the world, but without the steering wheel, you literally cannot get your ideas to a destination. You are just sitting in the driveway, revving the engine, making a lot of noise, burning fuel, but going absolutely nowhere.
That is the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you look around your organization, this explains why so many incredibly brilliant technical experts just hit a ceiling in their careers.
Yes. You see it everywhere.
They have the horsepower, but they lack the steering. They get deeply frustrated because they look across the hall and see people who, frankly, maybe know a little less technically.
The smooth talkers.
Right, but those people communicate beautifully.
Yeah.
And They are the ones getting promoted, leading the massive projects and securing the funding.
And the technical experts always complain. They say, oh, it's just politics. They're just playing the game.
But it's not just politics. It is practicality. The people who can steer the car are the ones who can actually deliver the value of that technical horsepower to the rest of the organization.
That makes total sense.
A brilliant algorithm is totally useless if the CEO doesn't understand why it's going to increase revenue. The communicator bridges that gap.
So to master this steering wheel, we have to understand the actual components of it. And according to the guide, we can break down all communication, whether it's business, personal, academic, into 4 core pillars, 4 distinct channels that we have to operate.
Right. And rather than just, listing them abstractly, let's look at how they function in a real scenario you've probably lived through 100 times.
Okay.
Let's say you are pitching a new software tool to your executive team over a remote video call.
High stakes. Everyone's judging you. Go.
Okay, first you have the verbal pillar. This is the speaking, the auditory interaction. It's how you shape understanding through your actual voice. So in this pitch, it's the specific words you were saying to the executives, your tone, your pacing, how you emphasize the return on investment.
Second, the nonverbal pillar. Right? This is your physical presentation. On that video call, even though you were just sitting at a desk, they are watching your posture.
Exactly.
Are you slumped? Are you making eye contact with the webcam? Or are your eyes like darting over to your secondary monitor because you're reading a script?
People always do that.
Always. Are you using hand gestures to emphasize points, or are your hands nervously wringing each other off camera? This is everything you were saying when your mouth is closed.
Yes. Third is the visual pillar. This is your use of graphics and design to simplify complex ideas. So while you were speaking, you were likely sharing your screen.
Hopefully.
Right. And that slide deck with the workflow chart, the pricing graph, the before and after comparison, all of that is visual communication.
And fourth, the written pillar. Text-based communication. This happened before the meeting even started, right? When you sent out the agenda email to the executives.
Good point.
It's happening during the meeting if you are dropping links or summaries into the Zoom chat. And it happens after the meeting when you send the executive summary follow-up.
Exactly. Now, what is absolutely crucial to realize here is that these aren't isolated buckets that you do one at a time.
Right.
You are operating all 4 pillars simultaneously.
Yeah.
You are speaking verbally while managing your nonverbal physical cues, while navigating a visual slide deck, while referencing a written agenda.
It's literally like patting your head, rubbing your belly, reciting the alphabet backward, and doing long division all at the exact same time.
It really is.
No wonder a 30-minute presentation leaves you feeling completely drained. It is an incredibly complex cognitive load.
It is highly complex human behavior.
Yeah.
And since human interaction is the absolute foundation of all this, long before we even think about bringing artificial intelligence into the mix to make our lives easier.
Which we will get to.
We will. But we have to master the human element first, specifically how we present ourselves physically and verbally. Because if the human hardware is broken, the AI software tools aren't going to save us.
Man, that's the truth. And here's a stat from the materials that we really need to sit with. When we communicate, a staggering 65% of all our communication is nonverbal.
It's wild.
65%. That means more than half of the message you are sending to your colleagues, your boss, or your clients has absolutely nothing to do with the brilliant script you wrote.
It completely upends how professionals prepare for high-stakes moments. I mean, think about your last big presentation.
Oh, I agonized over it.
Right. You probably spent 99% of your prep time obsessing over the script, rewriting the bullet points, tweaking the exact phrasing of your opening joke.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe you spent 1% of your time actually thinking about how you were going to physically deliver those words.
We agonize over the 35% and we completely ignore the 65%.
Precisely. And the reality is, many professionals struggle in these moments, not from a lack of knowledge. I mean, they know their subject matter inside and out.
Right.
They struggle from a lack of confidence. It's the anxiety, the fear of judgment, the imposter syndrome.
And that lack of confidence just leaks out through that massive 65% nonverbal channel.
Oh, absolutely.
You can be reciting the most brilliant, airtight strategic plan ever conceived, but if your shoulders are hunched up by your ears, your voice is shaking, and you are literally shrinking into your chair, the audience isn't hearing the strategy.
No, they aren't.
They are seeing the anxiety. And subconsciously, their brains are saying, well, if this person doesn't believe in what they are saying, why should I?
Exactly, because nonverbal cues are fundamentally what build trust. Before humans even had spoken language, we relied entirely on nonverbal cues to determine if the person approaching our camp was a friend or a threat.
Right, that evolutionary biology.
That evolutionary hardware is still running in our brains today. Nonverbal cues foster trust, they enhance credibility, and they convey knowledgeability. So if we know physical confidence is the key, how do we actually get it when we are terrified?
Good question.
Fortunately, the guide gives us 3 highly actionable physiological hacks to boost confidence.
Okay, I want to go through these, but I am going to push back a little here because I am naturally skeptical of life hacks.
Fair enough.
The internet is full of gurus telling you to just, stand like Superman and all your problems will magically disappear. So let's look at the first one from the text, the power posture. The instruction is to stand tall, keep your shoulders open, breathe properly, and maintain a slight smile. The claim is that this posture boosts confidence, releases positive hormones, and reduces stress.
Okay. And the second hack is using an anchor word, which is a positive affirmation.
Mm.
The concept here is to use a motivating phrase like focus, calm down, or you can do this. You repeat this phrase to yourself right before speaking to center your energy. The sources note that repeated positive affirmations strengthen belief and promote focus, while negative affirmations like telling yourself, oh man, don't mess this up, they have the exact opposite effect, actually priming your brain for failure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the third one, which I think is honestly the most specific and actionable, is the 3-2-1 connect method. It is a 3-step action plan for the exact moment you start your interaction. Step 3, make eye contact with at least 3 people in the room or on the screen.
Right.
Step 2, take 2 slow, deep breaths. Step 1, give 1 genuine smile. All right, so here is my question to you. Do things like a power posture or anger words really trick our brains? Is this just fake it till you make it pseudoscience?
I get why you asked that.
Because if I am panicking internally about a board presentation, puffing my chest out just feels like I'm putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. What is actually happening here?
It is a very fair skepticism. But understand why this works. We have to look at the physiological and psychological feedback loops in the human body.
Okay.
It is not about tricking your brain or faking anything. Your brain and your body are in constant bidirectional communication.
Right.
When your brain perceives a threat, like public speaking, it signals your body to protect itself. So you hunch over to protect your vital organs, you breathe shallowly in your upper chest to prepare to run, and your heart rate spikes to pump blood to your limbs.
The classic fight or flight response.
Exactly. But here's the critical part. That physical state then sends a signal back to your brain saying, hey, our chest is tight, our heart is racing, we are definitely in grave danger, keep panicking.
Wow.
It becomes a vicious, self-sustaining loop of anxiety.
So your mind makes your body panic, and your panicking body convinces your mind to panic more.
Yes. What the power posture does is forcefully interrupt the physical side of that loop. By consciously standing tall and pulling your shoulders back, you are mechanically giving your diaphragm and lungs more room to expand. This allows for proper deep breathing. This deep breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, which triggers the parasympathetic nervous system.
The rest and digest system.
Exactly. This actively lowers your heart rate and physically reduces stress hormones like cortisol in your bloodstream. You aren't faking confidence. You are fundamentally altering your body's chemistry to force a state of calm.
So the body leads and the mind is forced to follow. That actually makes complete sense.
It does, and that ties directly into the mechanics of the 3-2-1 connect method. Think about what a panic attack actually is.
It's awful.
It is, and it is an intense internal focus on your own fear. Making eye contact with 3 people forces your brain to stop looking inward at your anxiety and start looking outward at your environment.
Oh, that's smart.
It establishes human connection and grounds you in reality.
And the 2 slow breaths or that vagus nerve reset you just mentioned.
Right. And then giving 1 smile.
Wait, even if it's a forced smile? Because smiling when you're terrified feels very unnatural.
Even if it is purely mechanical at first.
Really?
Yeah, the physical contraction of the facial muscles required to smile has been clinically shown to trigger the release of endorphins and serotonin.
That is wild.
Furthermore, we have specific insights regarding how that smile is perceived by others. A neutral, slightly smiling facial expression is the ultimate trust builder for an audience. It signals approachability and safety. Standing tall with open arms suggests openness. Even simple rhythmic nodding while someone else is speaking indicates attentiveness.
Right.
By controlling the physical vessel, you transform yourself from an anxious, closed-off liability into a trusted, authoritative presence in the room.
Okay, I'm sold. The physiology is undeniable. We conquer the 65% nonverbal channel by basically controlling our biology. But what about the verbal side? The 35% that is actually coming out of our mouths. Because you can stand up perfectly straight, but if you start speaking and sound incredibly unprofessional, the trust evaporates immediately.
Exactly. There are strict guidelines on professional verbal etiquette that we need to observe.
Let's hear them.
First and foremost, in professional contexts, you must ruthlessly exclude informal or personal jargon.
Makes sense.
You have to maintain a professional demeanor, project confidence by speaking with authority, and ensure you are actively making your conversation partner feel comfortable and respected.
There are some very specific examples of what not to do here from the materials, which I found highly relatable.
Oh, yeah.
Think about how you start a meeting. In formal settings, you should always begin by greeting the audience before introducing the topic, like, "Good morning, everyone. Let's dive into the Q3 numbers."
Right.
What you should absolutely avoid is logging into a Zoom call and barking, "Hey guys, listen up."
Yeah, please don't do that. Now, obviously, if it's a very close-knit team of 5 people you've worked with for years, hey guys might be perfectly acceptable.
Sure.
But as a baseline professional standard, especially with clients or cross-functional teams, the formal greeting establishes immediate respect. It signals that you value the audience's time and that you are taking the interaction seriously. It basically sets the temperature of the room.
Speaking of temperature, let's talk about the confidence tone.
Yes.
A confident tone is defined in the guide as clear, steady, and moderate. You have to make sure your message is comprehensible without rushing out of nervous energy or, hesitating and dragging. Which brings us to the ultimate enemy of the steady tone.
Filler words.
Filler words.
Filler words. The bane of every public speaker. We all use them.
We do. I'm sure I've used 20 already.
We use them to fill the dead air while our brains are desperately trying to retrieve the next piece of information. But there is a fascinating hierarchy to how these filler words damage our credibility.
This was so interesting to me.
The word "like" is actually less noticeable and less damaging to an audience, whereas and "I" are highly distracting and actively degrade your perceived intelligence.
That is so interesting. Why is somewhat forgivable, but is a complete death sentence for your credibility?
It comes down to cognitive friction. It's a real word. It functions, albeit clunkily, as a conversational bridge. People use it as a conjunction. And not words, there are guttural noises of confusion.
Wow, yeah.
When an audience hears their brain registers a stall, it sounds like you are lost in your own subject matter. Every show is a tiny speed bump in their comprehension.
So it literally interrupts their processing.
Yes.
Yes.
If you want to be perceived as a master of your domain, you have to smooth out the road. If you lose your train of thought, it is 100 times better to simply pause in complete silence for 2 seconds than to fill that silence with an
Silence projects power, projects panic. I love that. All right, let's take stock. We've got our body language dialed in. We are breathing deeply, triggering our parasympathetic nervous system. We have dropped the ums and ahs, and we are greeting people with professional respect. We have mastered the physical and verbal spaces. But earlier, we said there were 4 pillars.
Right.
We need to shift our focus now to the visual advantage. Because if nonverbal is the dominant physical cue, visual is undeniably the dominant cognitive cue.
The data on visual communication is absolutely staggering. Visuals make communication up to 100 times more effective than text alone.
See, I need to stop you right there. 100 times multiplier sounds impossibly high for just adding a line chart to a slide deck. What is the actual cognitive mechanism happening in the brain there? How does a picture make something 100 times more effective?
It comes down to how human memory encodes information, which we can describe as the memorability gap. People retain roughly 80% of visual content compared to just 20% of text.
80 versus 20, wow.
Yeah. To understand why, we look at cognitive load theory and the dual coding effect.
Okay, lay it on me.
Text is abstract. When you read a word, your brain has to decode the letters, translate them into a concept, and then hold that concept in your working memory. It is computationally heavy.
Right.
A visual, like a well-designed graph showing a massive spike in sales, is processed almost instantaneously by the visual cortex. Your brain doesn't have to translate it, it just understands it. Graphics make information fundamentally sticky.
This instantly makes me think of the universal corporate trauma that every single listener has experienced.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Death by PowerPoint.
The absolute worst.
You know exactly what I mean. You walk into a dimly lit conference room at 2 p.m.
You're already sleepy.
You've just had lunch. The presenter pulls up a slide, and it is a solid wall of 12-point font. Bullet point after bullet point after bullet point.
It's awful.
And then, the ultimate sin. The presenter proceeds to turn their back to you and simply read the slide out loud, word for word. It is agonizing. You can physically feel your brain shutting down.
Your brain is shutting down because it is experiencing a catastrophic system crash.
Literally.
This is called a split attention effect. You are trying to read the dense text on the screen, which utilizes the phonological loop in your working memory.
Right.
Simultaneously, you're trying to listen to the presenter speak the exact same words, which also uses the phonological loop. The two inputs clash, creating massive cognitive overload. You end up retaining neither.
But then, every once in a while, you get a presenter who clicks to the next slide, and it's completely different. It's clean. There are rules for this clarity, right?
Yes. The golden rule from our sources for a highly understandable slide is brutal simplicity. It should contain a maximum of 3 icons and 1 key sentence. That's it.
When you see a slide like that, after suffering through walls of text, it literally feels like a breath of fresh air. Your brain relaxes.
Exactly. Because you are letting the visual do the heavy lifting. If you are showing sales trends, you don't need a massive data table. A clear chart is a simple line chart with clearly labeled axes and 1 sentence of text to provide the core insight.
No 3D exploding pie charts.
No 3D exploding pie charts. No drop shadows. No unnecessary visual noise. Just the data presented simply. Furthermore, to achieve a truly professional visual style, you need strict consistency in your colors, fonts, and overall design.
Why is the consistency so vital? Is it just about making it look pretty and adhering to the corporate brand guidelines?
No, it is highly functional for the audience's brain. Consistent design improves recognition and drastically reduces cognitive friction.
How so?
Think about it. Every time you change a font, or swap the background color, or move the title from the top left to the bottom right from slide to slide, the audience's brain has to spend a fraction of a second readjusting to the new visual rules of that specific slide.
I never thought of that.
Over a 30-minute, 40-slide presentation, that micro-friction adds up to massive exhaustion. By keeping the visual style completely consistent, you train the audience's brain on how to read your slides in the first 2 minutes. For the rest of the presentation, they aren't thinking about your layout. They are absorbing your ideas.
Okay, let's look at the reality of the situation. We know what the gold standard is now.
Yeah.
We need confident, calm, nonverbal cues. We need clear, steady, jargon-free verbal delivery. We need concise writing. And we need incredibly simple, consistent, high-impact visuals.
That is the recipe for perfect communication.
But here is the massive elephant in the room. Achieving that gold standard manually is exhausting.
It really is.
It takes a massive amount of time. Crafting the perfect, simple, punchy sentence takes significantly longer than just typing out a rambling paragraph.
Oh, definitely.
Designing a beautiful 3-icon slide deck with perfect visual consistency from scratch takes hours of tweaking in PowerPoint. Most professionals do not have 40 hours a week to dedicate solely to polishing their communication. They have actual technical jobs to do.
Right.
They have to write the code, balance the books, and manage the team.
Which brings us to the major pivot of our deep dive today. How do we achieve this master-level communication without burning ourselves out? Enter artificial intelligence.
The AI copilot. This is where we learn how to leverage the machine. But before we dive into the specific tools, we need to establish a very important ground rule about how we view AI in this context. What is its actual role?
This is critical to get right. AI is an enabler. It is a tool for extreme efficiency.
Okay.
It is meant to be leveraged to remove the manual labor from communication, but it is not meant to be a total replacement for you. It enhances your ability to create documents, structure arguments, and build presentations at lightning speed.
But it can't do the human stuff.
Exactly. It cannot replace human confidence, empathy, or physical expression. Verbal communication, nonverbal presence, those remain entirely human domains. AI is your co-pilot. It can chart the course and manage the engine, but you are still sitting in the captain's chair making the final calls.
I think that framing is essential because it removes the fear that AI is just going to do everything for us and make us obsolete. So let's look at the instruments on the dashboard. There are a lot of tools out there. Let's start with the written communication tools.
For text generation and writing assistance, we have a very strong lineup of large language models. There is ChatGPT, which remains the gold standard for general prompt writing, email drafting, and brainstorming.
Sure.
There is Microsoft Copilot, which is fantastic if you are deeply embedded in the Microsoft Office ecosystem. There's Perplexity, which operates a bit differently. It's more of a conversational search engine that cites its sources, making it incredible for research-heavy writing.
And there's a specific note about Perplexity in our sources.
Yeah.
Right?
A quick pro tip here.
Yeah.
If you are an Airtel user, check your plan, because the pro version of Perplexity might be available to you, which unlocks significantly better models.
It's a great tip.
Then you have tools like DeepSeek, Google Gemini, and Meta's AI offerings, which all provide variations of high-level text generation.
It's a crowded market, but essentially, they are all extremely powerful text synthesizers. But let's move to the visual tools, because as we just discussed, visuals are 100 times more effective, yet historically they are the hardest things for non-designers to create.
Oh, without a doubt.
If I don't know how to use Adobe Illustrator, how do I get that visual advantage?
This is where AI truly feels like magic. We look at two specific tools here from the guide. The first is Gamma AI. Gamma is highly recommended for generating visually engaging presentations directly from text.
Just from text.
Just text. You literally type in a prompt like, create a 10-slide presentation on Q3 marketing strategies for a sauce company, and within 30 seconds, it generates the entire deck layout, text, consistent color palettes, and imagery.
But there is a massive workflow trick here, right? Because an AI presentation is never 100% perfect on the first try.
Exactly. The crucial tip is that when you export your presentation out of Gamma AI, you must download it in PPTX format. That is the standard PowerPoint file type.
Why does that matter so much? Why not just grab the PDF?
Because if you download it as a flat PDF, the file is baked. You can't change anything.
Oh, right.
If the AI hallucinates a weird bullet point or uses an icon you don't like, you are stuck with it. By downloading it in PPTX, you retain full editability of every single element.
That is huge.
You let Gamma AI do the heavy lifting, the 80% of the work that involves layout, color consistency, and structural generation, which saves you hours. Then you, the human expert, open it in PowerPoint and do the final 20% of refinement. You tweak the wording, you swap in your specific company logo, you adjust a chart. It is the perfect synergy of AI efficiency and human precision.
That PPTX download trick alone will save people hundreds of hours a year. And the second visual tool?
App.leonardo.ai. Leonardo AI is a freemium creative tool used for generating incredibly high-quality graphic backgrounds, illustrations, and marketing visuals.
Okay, how does that differ from Gamma?
If Gamma AI is for structuring your overall slide decks, Leonardo AI is for when you need a highly specific, custom, visually arresting image to serve that one key focal point on a slide or in a newsletter, and you just don't want to use cheesy stock photos.
Okay, so we have these incredibly powerful tools for text and visuals. Let's look at how they are actually being applied in the real world. Let's look at human resources, a department built entirely on communication.
Yes, great example.
The applications start off pretty standard. Using ChatGPT for writing professional emails to the company, drafting meeting minutes from transcripts, preparing standard contractual documents, and generating standard offer letters.
Very standard.
That all makes sense. It's high volume, highly structured text. But then there's another application in HR mentioned in the text that genuinely made me stop and question everything.
You're looking at the conflict resolution application.
Yes. The directive is to use ChatGPT for conflict resolution and scenario planning. I'm going to push back hard on this. How in the world does a machine, a piece of software that cannot feel emotion, that doesn't understand nuance, that has never had a bad day at work, help navigate messy, highly emotional human workplace dynamics?
It sounds counterintuitive.
If I found out my boss used ChatGPT to write an apology to me or to scold me about my performance, I would lose all respect for them. It feels dystopian.
And if your boss literally copied and pasted a ChatGPT script to talk to you, you would be absolutely right to be angry. That would be an abdication of leadership.
Exactly.
But that is not how you use it for conflict resolution.
Right.
You don't use it to generate the final script. You use it as a scenario simulator to remove your own emotional bias.
Walk me through that. How does a simulator work for a human conflict?
Think about a manager who has an employee consistently missing deadlines. The employee is defensive, maybe dealing with personal issues, and the manager is incredibly frustrated. The manager is human. They're angry, their blood pressure is up, and they're dreading the confrontation. If they draft an email or plan a meeting while in that heated emotional state, the communication will be deeply flawed.
Yeah, they might lash out.
It might be aggressively accusatory, or they might overcorrect and be too passive-aggressive.
They lose the professional tone because they are blinded by the emotion.
Exactly. So instead of reacting immediately, the manager opens ChatGPT. They use it for scenario planning. They input the raw facts of the delicate situation.
What does that look like?
They'd say something like, I am a manager. I have an employee doing X. I need them to achieve Y. In the past, when I brought this up, they reacted defensively by saying Z. Act as an expert HR mediator and help me role-play this conversation. Give me 3 different ways to open the dialogue that de-escalate tension.
Ah, so you are using the AI as a neutral sparring partner.
Precisely. The AI has no ego. It has no emotional bias. It will provide balanced, neutral, highly professional responses based purely on best practices for organizational communication.
That is fascinating.
It forces the manager to look at the situation objectively.
Yeah.
It drains the venom out of their initial emotional response. It helps them draft an approach that is structured and fair, allowing them to walk into the actual human interaction with a clear strategy and a calm demeanor rather than raw, reactive emotion.
It's like having an impossibly calm, hyper-rational executive coach sitting next to you at all times saying, take a breath, let's look at the facts, here is the most productive way to phrase this so the employee actually hears you. That is actually a brilliant use of the technology.
It is. But all this power, the presentation generation, the email drafting, the conflict scenario planning, it all hinges on one single critical factor.
The prompt.
An AI tool is only as good as the instructions you give it.
Yes, the prompt. Which leads us seamlessly into what I consider the absolute masterclass of this entire deep dive. It is not enough to just open ChatGPT and type a question. You have to know how to talk to the machine.
It's a skill of its own.
We have 2 overlapping frameworks provided in our materials today that teach the exact architecture of a perfect prompt. Let's break them down.
The first framework focuses on what it calls the 4 key elements of crafting an effective prompt. If you want good output, your prompt must contain tone, word limit, audience type, and intent.
Let's define those for the listener. Tone is the required style. Is it formal, persuasive, casual, urgent? You establish this right away.
Great.
Word limit is exactly what it sounds like, setting a boundary, like keep this under 100 words or give me exactly 3 paragraphs. Audience type defines who the end reader is. A technical document for a senior engineering manager requires vastly different language than an update for high school students. And intent clarifies the purpose. Are you trying to inform, to persuade, to apologize, to summarize?
Here is a simple functional example of putting those 4 elements together. Write a formal email, that's the tone, of under 100 words, that's the word limit, to my manager, the audience type, because I want to request a 1-week leave of absence for a family vacation, which is the intent.
It's solid. It gives the AI clear boundaries. But then we cross-reference this with a highly specific manual from Google on prompting best practices, and Google provides its own slightly more advanced structure.
Google's approach is great.
They break it down into persona, task, context, and format.
Let's look at Google's definitions. Persona is the specific expertise or role you want the AI to adopt.
Okay.
Task is the specific action you want it to perform. Context is all the background information the AI needs to understand the situation. And format is how you want the results presented visually.
Google's example is a bit more robust. Acting as a seasoned senior ad copywriter, which is the persona, create a concise, catchy tagline, the task, for a new washing machine that features 25 settings, but is designed specifically to fit in small urban apartments.
That's the context.
Exactly. Present the options as a bulleted list using active voice with each tagline under 6 words. That's the format.
If we synthesize these 2 frameworks, we see they are teaching the exact same underlying discipline. The persona in Google's framework dictates the tone in the first framework.
Right, because an ad copywriter sounds different than a lawyer.
Exactly. If you tell it to act as a senior ad copywriter, it will automatically adopt a persuasive, punchy tone. Google's context encompasses both the audience and the intent. You're giving the AI the full background of the world it is operating in.
I really want to emphasize why applying these frameworks is so vital. Think about the listener staring at a blank chat window. You cannot just type, write me an update on the project. Why? Because prompting an AI is exactly like directing a highly skilled, incredibly fast, but completely literal intern who has zero common sense and zero understanding of your company's culture.
The literal intern analogy is perfect.
It really clicked for me. If you hand that literal intern a messy spreadsheet and just say, make this better, what are they going to do?
Google's manual explicitly warns against this. They use that exact phrase. They call "make this better" a vague prompt that forces the AI to guess what you want.
Right. Because better means wildly different things to different people.
Oh, absolutely.
To a corporate lawyer, better means adding more legally defensible jargon and clauses. To a social media marketer, better means making it punchier, shorter, and adding emojis. To a data engineer, better means making it technically precise and removing adjectives. The literal intern doesn't know which one you are. You have to give them the exact parameters of success.
And this ties directly into a crucial rule Google provides for prompt writing. They call it the 3 Cs. Be concise, be clear, be consistent.
Let's unpack the 3 Cs because this is where most people trip up.
Be concise means keeping your prompts focused. Avoid overly long, tangled, conversational requests. You don't need to ask the AI how its day is going.
Right. Skip the pleasantries.
Exactly. A shorter, highly structured prompt requires less processing and leaves less room for the AI's attention mechanism to get lost in irrelevant details. Be clear means avoiding ambiguous instructions. This is the antidote to make it better. You must provide specific, actionable directions to guide the AI toward the intended output.
And the third C, be consistent. This one is mechanically fascinating, and it's a mistake I make all the time. You must use the exact same vocabulary for the same concepts throughout your entire conversation with the AI.
Yes. To understand why this matters, you have to understand simply how large language models work. They don't read words like humans do. They tokenize words into mathematical vectors.
Vectors, okay.
If you refer to your data as a spreadsheet in your first prompt, the AI builds a semantic web around the concept of a spreadsheet. If you suddenly start calling it a matrix or a tab 3 prompts later, the AI might literally think you are introducing a completely new, separate dataset. You confuse the machine's internal logic.
Wow. You have to maintain a completely stable linguistic environment for the machine, pick your nouns, and stick to them.
Exactly. And the Google manual adds a fantastic operational tip here. Build a prompt library.
Oh, I like that.
When you finally nail the perfect combination of persona, task, context, and format that generates exactly the kind of weekly status report your boss loves, do not just close the window. Copy that prompt.
Save it.
Save it in a document. Use it as your template for the future, adjusting only the specific context week to week. Stop reinventing the wheel every Monday morning.
Okay, so let's imagine a scenario. The listener does everything right. They use the 3 Cs. They perfectly execute the persona, task, context, format framework. They hit enter. The AI spits out a beautifully formatted response. We are done, right? Copy, paste, send to the CEO.
Absolutely not. And this is where professionals get themselves into massive trouble.
Massive trouble.
Even with a mathematically perfect prompt, the first draft generated by an AI is rarely the final product. We must move into the critical phase of iteration and evaluation. The Google text explicitly warns that we must always act as the editor, because AI can and will hallucinate or contain subtle errors.
Hallucinations, that's the industry term for when the AI just confidently makes something up out of thin air, right? Like citing a court case that didn't exist or inventing a statistic.
Yes. Remember, LLMs are fundamentally predictive text engines. They are trying to predict the most statistically likely next word. They are not databases querying absolute truth.
Right.
Hallucinations are most likely to happen in a few specific scenarios. When the AI is asked to solve a completely novel problem it has never seen, when there were factual errors in its massive training data, or, crucially, when it is asked to understand real-world physical mechanics. AI does not live in the physical world. It only knows the text it was trained on.
So we have to be the human firewall. The manual provides 4 specific criteria we must use to evaluate the output before we ever use it. First is accuracy. Is the information correct and factually sound? You have to fact-check the machine against reality.
Always.
Second is bias.
This is a vital point to understand mechanically. AI models are trained on massive, specific data sets, essentially, a giant scrape of the internet. Right. Because of this, they inherently carry the baseline assumptions, cultural perspectives, and biases of whatever data they ingested. They might favor one perspective over another simply because it was more prevalent in the training data. You, the human, have to evaluate the output to ensure it is balanced and fair for your specific context.
The third evaluation criterion is relevancy. Does the output directly answer your prompt, or did it wander off topic? And fourth is consistency. Is the tone, style, and quality the same throughout the entire response, or did it start formal and end up sounding like a teenager?
If the answer to any of those evaluation questions is no, you don't just throw your hands up and say AI is useless, you iterate. The AI output is a clay model. You have to sculpt it.
Okay, how do we sculpt it?
We have 3 specific techniques for iteration. The first is simply to revisit your framework. If the output is bad, you probably left a loophole in your persona, task, format, or context. Tighten the parameters.
Makes sense. The second technique is to break up complex tasks. If you ask the AI to do a massive, multifaceted analysis all in one go, it will likely give you a shallow, generic overview. You have to walk it down the path.
Think of it like giving instructions to that literal intern again. You don't give them a month-long project in one sentence. You break it into steps.
Right.
Step 1. First, analyze these 3 documents and extract the key principles of effective supply chain management.
Yeah.
You let it generate that, you review it, ensure it's accurate. Then you give step 2. Now, using only those principles, how can I apply them to resolve a bottleneck in our current shipping route to Europe? You are holding the AI's hand step by logical step, which allows you to course correct along the way.
And the third iteration technique is add constraints. You add highly specific requirements the AI must meet to narrow its focus.
Give me an example.
So if you ask for marketing ideas, it might give you a 5-year, multi-million-dollar television campaign. So you iterate by adding a constraint. Provide 3 marketing solutions that can be implemented within a single week on a budget of $0. Suddenly, the AI is forced to stop being generic and start giving you highly actionable, immediate tactics.
That is powerful. There is one more prompting technique mentioned that I think is the ultimate cheat code, especially when you are struggling to get the tone exactly right. Adding references.
Yes. Providing examples of what you want. You are essentially giving the AI a bullseye to aim at.
Instead of spending 4 paragraphs trying to describe an abstract vibe like, make it sound cool but professional but a little outdoorsy, you just give it a reference text.
The example provided for this in the materials is perfect. Imagine you need a social media post for a local music festival. You prompt the AI. Use the following example as a strict reference for tone, vocabulary, and format, and then you paste the reference, where mountains meet music. Indie Rock's festival returns. Your favorite local bands, plus national acts. Good eats and sleep under the stars. Hashtag Indie Rocks, hashtag support local music.
By feeding it that reference text, the AI instantly analyzes the syntax. It sees the short fragments, the use of emojis, the casual ampersand instead of the word and, the specific hashtag structure.
It reverse engineers it.
Exactly. It immediately maps that persona and will generate new posts that perfectly mimic that exact voice. It is the ultimate shortcut to tone.
Okay, we are getting incredibly sophisticated about how we command these tools. But there is one technical pitfall that the Google manual highlights, and it is something I guarantee almost every listener is doing wrong. It has to do with how the AI actually remembers your conversation. We need to talk about context windows.
This is a fundamental mechanic of how large language models operate. The context window is the total amount of text, both your prompts and the AI's responses, that the model can retain in its active memory within a single chat session.
Okay.
It is not infinite. Think of it like a desk. You can only put so many papers on the desk before things start falling off or getting mixed up.
And the absolute non-negotiable rule is, when changing topics, you must always start a new chat.
Because if you don't clear the desk, the AI gets confused by the cross-contamination of ideas. Let's look at a scenario. Say you spent 30 minutes in a chat window discussing the incredibly specific messaging for a Q4 enterprise software marketing campaign.
High stakes, very serious.
Right. You've fed it all this context about your corporate clients, your dense technical features, your pricing tiers. Then, in that exact same chat window, you get an email from your boss asking for ideas for the company holiday party. So you just type into the chat, brainstorm some fun ideas for a holiday party.
What happens? Because I know what happens. You are treating ChatGPT like a text thread with your best friend, where you can just seamlessly jump from talking about work to talking about dinner plans. But the AI doesn't know you changed the subject.
Exactly. The AI still has all the heavy corporate enterprise software context loaded onto its desk. So when you ask for fun holiday party ideas, it's going to try to generate ideas that fit within the constraints of the enterprise software campaign.
Oh, boy.
It might suggest a software integration-themed party, or a party where everyone reads technical manuals. As the warning states, it will use the unrelated context provided earlier and generate an irrelevant, misguided, or deeply weird response.
The new chat button is honestly the most underutilized tool in all of artificial intelligence. You have to actively sweep the desk clean. You have to clear the machine's memory so it can approach your new task with a blank slate and relevant context only.
It is about maintaining strict hygiene in your communication with the AI, just as you would maintain clarity and boundaries in your communication with a human team.
Which is actually the perfect place to land the plane. Because we have spent all this time deep in the weeds of the machine prompting frameworks, context windows, tokenization, hallucination evaluation. But as we master this AI co-pilot, we must never lose sight of the ultimate goal.
Right.
The end consumer of every single email, presentation, and document we generate is not an algorithm. It is a human being. We have to bring all this technological leverage back to the human element.
The materials make sure to ground us in this reality, specifically addressing the complexities of human communication in diverse environments. For instance, operating in multicultural teams. When you are communicating across global cultures, you cannot just rely on a perfectly prompted AI template. You must adapt your tone, your visual choices, your body language, and the pace of your speech to fit different cultural contexts.
It's nuance.
A communication style that is considered confident, direct, and efficient in New York might be perceived as incredibly aggressive, rude, and disrespectful in Tokyo. The AI cannot read the room for you.
And for those listeners who are still developing these skills, perhaps early career professionals or students, there is some tough but necessary advice in the text. How do you actually improve your baseline human communication?
You have to practice.
You have to participate. You engage in events, you speak up in meetings, and crucially, you embrace discomfort and failure as the primary growth mechanisms.
Because communication is a muscle. You cannot build a muscle by reading a textbook about lifting weights. You actually have to get under the bar and do the reps. You have to give the presentation, feel your heart race, realize you survived the anxiety, and do it slightly better the next time.
We also have some highly practical insights for professionals operating in a globalized business environment where English is the default language, but it may not be their native tongue. This is a massive hurdle. We have 3 tips here. First, do not translate from your native language in your head. Try to force your internal monologue to think directly in English.
Which is incredibly difficult, but it is the necessary bridge to fluency. The act of internal translation creates a cognitive lag. That lag is what causes those ums and ahs we talked about earlier. It breaks the steady confidence tone.
Second, practice speaking to yourself out loud. Get the physical mechanics of your mouth and vocal cords used to forming the words smoothly. But the third point is the one I find most profound, and it ties everything we've talked about today, from the 65% nonverbal rule to the AI prompting together perfectly.
What is it?
The directive is, focus on confidence over grammatical perfection.
This brings us beautifully full circle to the very first definition of communication we established an hour ago. Communication is about mutual understanding.
Mutual understanding.
Perfect grammar, perfect vocabulary. It means absolutely nothing if you are so anxious, quiet, and hunched over that the listener cannot hear or understand the brilliant idea you are trying to share. Conversely, slight grammatical errors or a thick accent do not matter in the slightest if you confidently convey your ideas, maintain strong nonverbal eye contact, and genuinely connect with your audience.
Yeah.
The goal of all of this is connection and comprehension. It is not about getting a perfect score on a grammar test.
Let's take a breath and look at the massive journey we've just been on. We started with the realization that communication is the ultimate soft skill, the steering wheel, that actually gives your technical horsepower direction and purpose. We learned that 65% of your message is physical, and that you can literally hack your nervous system into projecting calm authority by using the 3-2-1 connect method. 3 eye contacts to break the anxiety loop, 2 slow breaths to trigger the vagus nerve, 1 smile to signal safety.
We established the visual advantage. Visuals command an 80% retention rate compared to just 20% for text because they bypass cognitive overload. This requires us to be ruthlessly simple with our designs, remember the golden rule of 3 icons and 1 sentence, and strict visual consistency.
And then we met our AI co-pilots. Tools like Gamma AI for instant presentation layouts, remember the PBCX trick, and ChatGPT for text generation. But we learned that these tools are useless without the discipline of the literal intern prompt. You must define the persona, the task, the context, and the format.
And the 3 C's.
Right. You must respect the 3 C's. Be concise, clear, and consistent with your vocabulary. You have to iterate, evaluate for hallucinations, and for the love of everything, use the new chat button to clear the desk when you change topics.
Ultimately, the artificial intelligence handles the efficiency.
Yeah.
It drafts the tedious email, it formats the slide layout, it provides a neutral, ego-free simulator for conflict resolution. But the human handles the connection. The human provides the underlying strategy, the cultural context, the empathy, and the physical presence that actually builds trust.
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Something that builds on everything we've discussed about where this is all heading.
Think about this dynamic. We are rapidly approaching a world where AI tools will become entirely flawless at producing perfectly formatted documents, grammatically pristine emails, and stunningly beautiful visual presentations for everyone, instantly.
Yeah.
When everyone has equal access to a tool that can generate technical perfection at the push of a button, perfection loses its premium value. It becomes the baseline expectation. So, as artificial intelligence effortlessly handles all the polish, will the rough, unpolished, spontaneous moments of human communication, our slight pauses as we search for the exact right word, our unique, quirky body language, our raw, unprompted empathy and emotion in a crowded room, will those human imperfections actually become the most valuable professional currency we have, simply because they're the only things an algorithm cannot fake?
Are the messy, dynamic, unpredictable waters of human connection actually our greatest long-term asset? It is a fascinating question to take into your work week. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Try out that 3-2-1 method before your next big Zoom meeting. Practice building a strict 4-part prompt with your literal AI intern. And remember, the engine is powerful, but keep your hands firmly on the steering wheel. We will catch you next time.